While I worked for Scripps Institution of Oceanography, I was in charge of about 75 wave buoys that collected data for research across the country. That daily surf report you glance at while standing in your underwear ready to drop in on some kooks? I was the one getting that for you. Yes, it was accurate, and no, you don't know how to read it. I had taken this job over from many before me who had gotten very frustrated and left. Very few lasted more than 2 years. I was on year 4. I loved the job. I got to travel to almost every harbor on the coast. I saw more whales than the Discovery Channel and had an office overlooking the ocean. I was on call 24/7, but I didn't care. After all, I was changing the world. What's a few sleepless nights? I already don't sleep due to my anxiety. At least now I'm getting frequent flyer miles for it. Our primary job was ocean research. Our data was important. Standard procedure was to put new mooring lines on all our buoys, regardless of their condition. And we ditched the old mooring lines in the ocean. Did I love ditching trash in the ocean when we serviced a buoy? No, but it was a hell of a lot easier that way. And to be honest, I was out having too much fun to think about the long-term consequences of my actions. One of our buoys was located in the Monterey National Marine Sanctuary, about 50 miles offshore. Placing a buoy in this location is no simple affair. It's a national marine sanctuary renowned for ecosystem, marine mammal activity, and beautiful coastline. Special permits and approvals are required. Weather can get extremely nasty, and support vessels and infrastructure can be a challenge. Getting our permit was actually easy. We were the famous Scripps. We were environmental warriors fighting those climate change deniers with cold, hard spreadsheets, peer-reviewed research papers, and an army of tree huggers called up at a moment's notice. Little did they know our spreadsheets sometimes come with an asterisk. The asterisk was we left a lot of trash. Lots of research equipment and lines that were a hazard for marine life. About 3 a.m. one spring night, our buoy's automated monitoring system started flooding my phone with texts. The buoy had stopped reporting. This isn't uncommon in my business, and sometimes there's a simple explanation. A bird made a nest on the buoy, a ship ran over it, or the occasional Trump supporter used our antenna as a flagpole. Normal stuff. Being woken by these messages in the middle of the night is the bane of the job, and the messages were not to be ignored. Continuous data was important for our research. Plus, I knew I was only hours away from angry surfers throwing their used-up sex wax at me. I sent a vessel out to go take a look. The next day I got a call. It was a satellite phone from the captain. I was anxious and asked for an update. He replied, "Yeah, I'm on site where your buoy's supposed to be. I don't see your buoy, but I do see a whale entangled on your mooring line. I'm not a sailor, but I curse a lot." After muting the phone and screaming, "Fuck, fuck, fuck," at the top of my lungs and scaring the shit out of my neighbors, I told him to cut the damn thing free. I don't want a dead whale on my watch. He refused. He cited the Marine Mammals Protection Act and how his license and livelihood depended on his actions. I couldn't argue with him. We needed to call the whale entanglement team. My lack of foresight and poor mooring design had entangled a beautiful female adult humpback whale. Now, the acronym for whale entanglement team is WET, or WET, which is highly ironic because the last thing they ever want to do is get wet. I got on the phone with the whale entanglement team and told them about the stranded whale on our mooring line. We needed to get out there ASAP. After giving him the location, there was an awkward silence on the line. That was beyond their capabilities. I asked why not. He replied their Zodiac could only go a mile or two offshore. The WET team was tasked with whale safety, but apparently all they had were swim floaties. I was very worried about this whale. At this point, I knew very little, but when the captain got to shore and texted me a photo, I knew things were serious. I didn't leave my desk. I called every contact I knew and called in every favor I had ever earned. I was able to secure a very capable research vessel the next day. It was going to cost me a pretty penny, but I didn't care. I would pay for it. I needed to get that whale free. I was so relieved. The path to rescue was clear. I had a vessel. I called the whale entanglement team immediately. It was time to roll. To my surprise, that was not an option. They thanked me for the vessel, but they needed to get their gear together, get their people together, which included a NOAA enforcement officer. Yes, the National Ocean and Atmospheric Administration has their own tree-hugging cops. I asked how long. He reassured me the task would only take a few days. Okay, well, I had a vessel. He called me back a few days later and informed me that he had a team together and had a NOAA enforcement officer ready to go. Yes, no more popping Xanax and biting my fingernails. Wait, why aren't you on your way? The weather had turned for the worse. The wind was blowing over 20 knots and the swell was picking up over 10 feet. Shit. I've worked in those conditions. It's not easy. In fact, it's dangerous. I couldn't argue with them. But this whale wasn't safe either. I pictured her out there tied up, struggling to reach the surface, struggling to breathe, no food, unable to move. I pictured the large swells pushing up over her head as the anchored mooring line pulled her underwater. I laid in bed imagining her whale songs crying for help. Whale songs can travel for thousands of miles, and every whale has a unique voice. Her family could hear her crying, suffering, and I could do nothing. And I was the one who put this line out, holding her down. I could do nothing but wait. I looked at the weather every day, multiple times a day. It was bad and getting worse. I was looking for a glimmer of hope, something, anything. I just needed a small weather window. It did not come. I went through the range of emotions. I thought about her every night. It was cold and dark. She could be on her last breath. She could be dead. I did not know. I was sad. I was angry at myself for letting this happen. I was angry with the wet team that insisted on staying dry. I was frustrated. I was guilty. I was desperate. I called everyone I could. But the cold reality was getting her in these conditions was a recipe to lose more people, and that would be worse. I had to sit with my emotions and my anxiety. I beat myself up. I should have done more when there was still time. My actions were not enough. 16 days of this emotional roller coaster went one day at a time. If adrenaline was a bank account, I was incurring severe overdraft fees. I was exhausted. Mother Nature had beat me. On day 16, the forecast changed. Calm seas were coming. On day 18, I finally had the whale entanglement team, the vessel, the officer, and all of the bureaucracy in place to go out. We had a vessel, we had weather, we had a team. We set out on day 19 to go cut this whale free. I learned from my mistake. I wasn't going to leave this to others. I hopped on the next plane to Monterey. Hell or high water, I was going to join them. I was paying for this vessel. How could they possibly tell me no? During the 5-hour transit, I asked the NOAA enforcement officer, who clearly displayed his badge and gun on board, why he brought his gun. Surely a puny 9mm bullet would only piss the whale off. He replied, "Oh no, the bullet is not for the whale. The bullet is for me, or anyone who would mess with that whale." I wondered how much we were paying this guy to protect a whale from a whale rescue team. As we continued, I was surprised to see a Coast Guard helicopter hovering behind the boat. The whale entanglement team had notified the Coast Guard. The helicopter was there to look around, I guess. I don't know what you can do to set a whale free with a $17 million helicopter, but it was certainly cool having it hover around us. Also, where the fuck were they 3 weeks ago? But since the helicopter was on the task, they went out and looked and located the whale and told us where it was. On top of that, they told us they had spotted a spout. She was still alive. We were overjoyed. Once they located the whale, they had nothing else to do and went on their way. Millions of taxpayer dollars were spent so someone could point to an anchored whale and say, "There she is." I named her Rapunzel for her beauty and stamina trying to escape a terrible situation. Unfortunately, poor Rapunzel is not doing well. She was clearly tired and injured. She was pulled down current, exhausted. She had clearly struggled, but was still surviving. Hanging out right below the surface, she came up for air every couple of minutes, only to duck her head a few feet below the water. Her tail was completely white as the strangulation from the mooring line had killed pretty much most of the tissue in her tail. Once on site, we launched the whale entanglement team's mighty little Zodiac. They inspected Rapunzel. They used GoPros mounted on sticks to image her. We watched the video show exactly what I could see from the surface. A freaking whale entangled in a mooring line. After reviewing the video, the head of the whale entanglement team proudly stated, "If we cut this line right here, the whale will go free." I stared at him. No shit, Sherlock. I was so tempted to yell to the armed NOAA officer that he had naked whale photos on his phone just to see what would happen. Rapunzel was finally going to be free, or so I thought. The new volunteers were wasting time arguing over who was going to be the one to cut her free. My mind just kept thinking, just get on the fucking boat and free Willie for fuck's sake. Once the Rochambeau War was over, they boarded the Zodiac with a knife on a pole and cut the line. Finally, she was free. Unfortunately, Rapunzel couldn't dive because her tail was so badly hurt. She swam away. She was breathing and using her front fins to move. I know whales can survive without a tail, and sometimes they can heal, so I still hold hope to this day. I often wonder if there's a whale song echoing in the deep about me. I'm guessing more of a whale rap cursing my name. Rapunzel's Rhapsody. That's fair. I don't know what happened to her after that. I wish I did. Every time I heard stories of a whale without a tail spotted, I tried to find out if it was her. No such reassurance ever came. We retrieved much of the line. It was horribly tangled. It was in my face. There was no escaping it now. Rapunzel had struggled and fought, dove and spun, anything to get free. It was at this moment it all became real. The pain I had caused, the relentless struggles, and Rapunzel's enduring drive and courage for survival. How did Rapunzel get entangled? I put too much line in the water and left too much trash. The manufacturer recommended putting a long mooring line in the water, and we never really questioned if it was necessary or not. We just followed their recommendations. We later learned all this line was not necessary. I designed a new mooring that was retrievable using less line. I wish I could say that I'm some magical whale hero, but I'm a guy who mistakenly caught a whale and did his best to fix it. Even then, I don't think that was enough. Now I see why the other guys left my job. The world's not as black and white as I thought. Even though it wasn't all my fault, and I did a lot of good things in my job, I still feel partly responsible for the damage we caused. Sometimes it's just better to ask for forgiveness than to ask for permission. Next time, what happens between me, a whale, and a knife will be a secret kept by the sea.
All right, let's hear it for Andrew Gray.